The Empress of the Vaelith Dominion had not spoken in 11 days. Her advisors circled the obsidian throne like carrion birds, their silver robes rustling against the cold floor as they debated her fate in whispers they thought she couldn't hear. Empress Syraeth Vel'Kora sat motionless, her four-fingered hands resting on the armrests carved from the bones of conquered worlds, her violet eyes fixed on nothing. She must choose a consort, High Minister Draven hissed to his colleagues. The bloodline cannot end with her. The Council of Seven grows impatient. No noble house will offer their sons now, another minister replied. Not after she executed Lord Thaven for his presumptions. He touched her without permission. The law was clear. The law is whatever the council decides it is. And they have decided she is damaged. Unstable. Unfit. Syraeth heard every word. She had heard variations of these words for 3 years, ever since she had taken the throne at the death of her mother, ever since she had refused to be the puppet they expected. Damaged. Unstable. Unfit. The words had long ago lost their sting. What remained was only a cold, spreading numbness that had begun in her chest, and now reached her fingertips. The doors to the throne room groaned open, and the ministers fell silent with the practiced speed of courtiers who knew when to hide their schemes. Commander Vaelith, her mother's oldest friend, and the only being in the palace Syraeth still trusted, strode forward with a human in tow. The human. Syraeth's gaze sharpened for the first time in days. He was shorter than the Vaelith, as all humans were, his frame compact where her people were elongated and angular. His skin was an earthy brown, marked with old scars on his forearms that spoke of labor rather than battle. His dark hair was cropped close, and his eyes, brown, unremarkable by Vaelith standards, carried a weight that didn't match his humble appearance. "Your Imperial Majesty," Commander Vaelith announced, her voice cutting through the chamber's cold air. "The human translator you requested, Marcus Cole, formerly of Earth's diplomatic corps, now available. Available. A polite word for disgraced." Syraeth had read his file. Marcus Cole had served as a junior translator for Earth's fledgling embassy on Vaelith Prime until 6 months ago, when he had refused to alter a translation that would have let a Vaelith noble escape punishment for killing a human worker. The noble had been executed. Marcus Cole had been dismissed from diplomatic service for overstepping his authority. He had been surviving in the lower districts ever since, teaching Vaelith children rudimentary human standard in exchange for food. The ministers exchanged glances of barely concealed contempt. A human. In the throne room. Standing before the Empress as if he had any right to exist in her presence. "This is the solution you bring us, Commander." High Minister Draven's voice dripped with disdain. "A discarded human to serve as... what, exactly?" "A cultural liaison," Commander Vaelith replied evenly. "Her Majesty requires someone who understands both our customs and human perspectives. For the upcoming negotiations with the Earth Coalition, we have translators. Proper ones. Of our own species. None who understand humans as humans understand themselves." Marcus Cole stood through this exchange without flinching, his hands clasped behind his back, his posture neither servile nor defiant. He simply waited. Syraeth found herself curious about that, about the particular quality of stillness in him that seemed neither afraid nor arrogant. "You may all leave," Syraeth said. Her voice, unused for 11 days, rasped like dry leaves. The ministers startled at the sound. Commander Vaelith's expression flickered with something that might have been relief. "Your Majesty," Draven began, "it would be improper for you to be alone with..." "I said leave." The command was soft. It was also absolute. One by one the ministers filed out, their protests dying in their throats. Commander Vaelith was the last to go, pausing at the door to give Marcus Cole a look that clearly said, "Do not fail her." The doors closed. Syraeth and the human regarded each other across the vast emptiness of the throne room. "You may approach," she said. He did. His footsteps echoed against the stone, but he moved without hesitation, stopping at the precise distance protocol demanded. He knew their customs. He knew exactly where he stood in their hierarchy, at the very bottom. And yet he looked at her directly, meeting her eyes when every instinct of a proper subject would have demanded he lower his gaze. "You understand why you're here," she said. It was not a question. "I understand what I was told, Your Majesty. Whether that's the truth is another matter." Something flickered in her chest. A spark of interest? Irritation? It was hard to tell. She had felt so little for so long. "And what were you told? That you need someone to help you understand human diplomatic protocols. That the negotiations next month are critical for both our peoples." He paused. "And that I was chosen because I have nothing left to lose, which makes me unlikely to be intimidated aligned to you. Do you believe that assessment is accurate? The part about having nothing to lose?" A ghost of something crossed his face. Not quite a smile. Not quite pain. "Yes, Your Majesty. That part is accurate." Syraeth rose from her throne. The movement was fluid, predatory in the way of her species, and she noted how Marcus Cole's body tensed almost imperceptibly before he forced himself to relax. He was afraid. He simply refused to show it. She descended the steps until she stood before him, close enough to see the faint lines at the corners of his eyes, the old scar that bisected his left eyebrow. Close enough to see the steadiness in his gaze that had nothing to do with courage and everything to do with resignation. "My advisors believe I am damaged," she said. "Unstable. Unfit to rule. They whisper that I should be removed, replaced with a regent until a suitable heir can be manufactured. They believe I do not hear them, or that I am too broken to care." Marcus Cole said nothing. He simply listened. "I have not spoken in 11 days, she continued. "Not because I could not, because there was no one worth speaking to. Everyone in this palace wants something from me. Everyone has an agenda, a scheme, a knife hidden behind their words." She tilted her head, studying him. "What do you want, Marcus Cole?" For a long moment, he was silent. Then he said, "Permission to be honest, Your Majesty, granted. I want to survive. I want to be useful enough that I'm not discarded when my usefulness ends. And I want—" He hesitated. "I want to matter. To someone. Somewhere. Even if it's only in some small way." The honesty of it struck her like a physical blow. In 3 years of ruling, no one had ever spoken to her with such unvarnished truth. Her advisors lied with every breath. Her subjects cowered and flattered. Even Commander Vaelith, loyal as she was, carefully shaped her words to avoid causing offense. But this human, this discarded, worthless human, had looked at the Empress of the Vaelith Dominion and told her the simple, desperate truth of his existence. "You are either very brave," Syraeth said, "or very foolish. Probably both, Your Majesty." And for the first time in 11 days, the Empress of the Vaelith Dominion felt the corners of her mouth twitch upward. The weeks that followed were unlike anything Marcus had experienced in his years among the Vaelith. He had been assigned quarters near the Empress's wing, modest by palace standards, luxurious by any measure he had known since his dismissal. Each morning, a servant brought him to a private study where Empress Syraeth waited, and each morning she interrogated him about humanity with the focus of a scholar and the hunger of someone who had been starving for genuine connection. "Explain this word," she said on the 5th day, sliding a tablet across the table. The screen displayed a transcript of human diplomatic communications she had somehow acquired. "Please. Your people use it constantly. It appears to have no function." Marcus studied the transcript. "It's a courtesy word. It softens a request, makes it feel less like a command. Why would you want a request to feel less like a command? If you want something done, you command it. The hierarchy is clear. That's, not how humans think about it." He searched for the right way to explain. "For us, even people in authority acknowledge that they're asking something of another person. Saying please is a way of recognizing that the other person has a choice, that their compliance isn't just expected, it's appreciated." Syraeth's brow furrowed. It was an expression Marcus had come to recognize. Genuine confusion, the kind that emerged when she encountered a concept that had no equivalent in Vaelith culture. But if someone is beneath you in hierarchy, their compliance is expected. That is the nature of hierarchy. Humans don't see it that way. We have hierarchies, sure, but there's this idea that every person has inherent dignity. That, even when you have power over someone, you should still treat them with respect. Saying please is part of that. Inherent dignity, she repeated slowly, as if tasting the words. Regardless of status. Regardless of status. She was silent for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was different, softer, almost wondering. Your people are very strange, Marcus Cole. We get that a lot, Your Majesty. The formal distance between them began to erode in ways Marcus hadn't anticipated. It started small. Syraeth began asking questions that had nothing to do with diplomatic protocols. Questions about Earth, about human families, about what it felt like to have seasons that changed and oceans that moved. Marcus found himself telling her about his childhood in Lagos, about his grandmother who had taught him that words could build bridges between any two souls, about the sister he had lost to illness 3 years ago. Is that why you became a translator? Syraeth asked. Because of your grandmother, partly. She always said that the most powerful thing you could give someone was understanding. That when you truly understood someone, their language, their culture, their heart, you could never see them as an enemy. And do you believe that? I did. Once. And now? Marcus looked at her, really looked at her, past the violet eyes and the silver blue skin and the imperious bearing that could silence a room. He saw the exhaustion she carried like armor. He saw the loneliness that mirrored his own. I think I'm starting to believe it again, he said quietly. Something shifted in Syraeth's expression. Something cracked, just slightly, in the wall she had built around herself. The next morning she asked him to call her by her name. Your Majesty, in private, when we are alone, I want to hear how a human says it. Syraeth. She closed her eyes. Again. Syraeth. Your language makes it sound different. Warmer, somehow. Is that bad? No. She opened her eyes, and there was something raw in them that made Marcus's chest tighten. It is the first time my name has not sounded like a weapon. The negotiations with the Earth Coalition loomed closer, and Syraeth's advisors grew more aggressive in their schemes. Prime Minister Draven in particular seemed determined to undermine her at every turn. He publicly questioned her judgment in council meetings, suggested that her reliance on a human advisor showed weakness, and began floating rumors that she was mentally compromised. He wants to replace me, Syraeth said one evening, her voice flat. They were in her private garden, surrounded by luminescent flowers that only bloomed in darkness. He's building a case for the Council of Seven. One more misstep and they'll have grounds to remove me. Can they do that? If they declare me unfit? Yes. The Empress serves at the Council's pleasure. That was the compromise my great-grandmother made to end the Civil War. In theory, the system works. In practice, it means I am only as powerful as the Council's tolerance. And Draven has been eroding that tolerance. For 3 years. She plucked a flower from its stem, crushing it between her fingers. The bioluminescence faded, leaving only darkness. He was my mother's enemy, too. She was better at the game than I am. She could smile at him while plotting his destruction. I do not have that gift. Maybe that's not a weakness. Syraeth looked at him sharply. What do you mean? Your mother played the game. She was good at it. But from what I've read, she was also exhausted by it. It consumed her. And in the end, she died young, officially from illness. But the records suggest she simply gave up. The words hung in the air. Marcus wondered if he had gone too far, if he had finally crossed a line that would cost him everything. But Syraeth only said very quietly, You have read about my mother. I wanted to understand you. I couldn't do that without understanding where you came from. And what do you understand, Marcus Cole? He chose his words carefully. I understand that you watched your mother destroy herself trying to be something she wasn't. I understand that you swore you wouldn't make the same mistake. And I understand that somewhere along the way you decided that if you couldn't win their game, you would stop playing entirely. Syraeth's hands trembled. It was the first time he had seen her composure crack, the first glimpse of the grief she had buried beneath her silence. "She told me to be strong," Syraeth whispered. "On her deathbed. She said the Vaelith respect only strength. She said I must never show weakness, never show pain, never show anything they could use against me. And so you showed them nothing at all." "Yes." Marcus reached out. Slowly, carefully, giving her every opportunity to pull away. He placed his hand over hers. Her skin was cooler than a human's, smooth and faintly textured like the petals of a flower. She did not pull away. "Your mother was wrong," he said. "Strength isn't about hiding who you are. It's about being who you are. Even when it costs you, even when it's terrifying. You speak of strength as if you know it," she said, her voice cracking. "But you were cast out, discarded. How can you speak of strength from a position of such weakness?" "Because I've been where you are." His grip on her hand tightened. "I've been so alone that I forgot what it felt like to be seen. I've built walls so high that I forgot there was anything on the other side. And I've learned that the walls don't protect you. They just make sure you die alone." Syraeth stared at him. A single tear, iridescent, shimmering with traces of silver, slid down her cheek. "I do not know how to tear them down," she admitted. "I have been behind them for so long. You don't have to do it alone. You would help me? Even knowing what it would cost you, I would." "Why?" Marcus smiled, soft and sad. "Because someone once told me that the most powerful thing you could give someone is understanding. And I understand you, Syraeth. I see you, and I don't think you're damaged, or unstable, or unfit. I think you're the strongest person I've ever met. You've just been fighting alone for so long that you've forgotten there's another way." The garden's luminescent flowers bloomed brighter, as if responding to the shift in the air between them. Syraeth's hand turned beneath his, her fingers intertwining with his own. "Teach me," she said. "Teach you what, please?" The word was hesitant, foreign on her tongue, but she forced it out. "Please, teach me your word. Teach me how to ask without commanding. Teach me how to be human." Marcus squeezed her hand. "I can't teach you to be human, but I can teach you to be yourself. The rest will follow." For the first time in years, Syraeth smiled. The attack came 3 days before the negotiations. Marcus woke to the sound of alarms, a keening wail that rose and fell like the cry of a wounded animal. He had barely stumbled out of bed when Commander Vaelith burst through his door, her face grim. "The Empress," she said. "They've taken her." The next hours were chaos. Draven had moved faster than anyone anticipated, leveraging his allies on the Council of Seven to stage what he called a protective intervention. Syraeth had been seized in her chambers, declared temporarily unfit due to concerning behavior, and confined to a secure wing of the palace until her stability could be properly assessed. It was a coup. A quiet, bureaucratic coup wrapped in the language of concern and legality. "You have to get me to her," Marcus told Commander Vaelith. "That's not possible. The secure wing is guarded by Draven's personal forces. Even I cannot. Then find someone who can." Vaelith studied him with those ancient, unreadable eyes. "You care for her." It was not a question. "Yes. She is the Empress of the Vaelith Dominion. You are a human with no status, no power, no protection. Draven will use this against her. He will claim that her association with you is proof of her instability. He will say that you have manipulated her, exploited her vulnerability. I know. And still you would go to her. I would tear down this palace stone by stone if I had to." Something flickered in Vaelith's expression. Something that looked almost like respect. "There's a maintenance passage," she said slowly. "Old? From before the last reconstruction. It leads to the secure wing's water systems. Draven's guards will not know of it. It's not in any current records." "Show me." The passage was narrow, damp, and pitch black. Marcus crawled through conduits that scraped his shoulders, dropped down shafts that seemed to have no bottom, and emerged, finally, into a service corridor behind the secure wing. 2 guards stood at the end of the hall. Marcus had no weapons, no combat training, no plan beyond sheer desperation. He walked toward them anyway. "Stop," one guard commanded. "This area is restricted by order of... I need to see the Empress." "That's not possible." "Return to your quarters, human, or... My name is Marcus Cole. I'm Her Majesty's cultural liaison. I have information critical to her safety, and I need to see her now." The guards exchanged glances. One of them laughed. A cold, contemptuous sound. "The human liaison. We've heard about you." He stepped closer, his hand resting on his weapon. "Draven has questions about your relationship with the Empress. Perhaps you should come with us. Answer those questions directly. Let me see her first. Then I'll answer whatever questions you want. You're not in a position to negotiate, human." "Maybe not." Marcus met the guard's eyes. "But I'm in a position to make a great deal of noise, and I'm betting Draven would prefer to handle this quietly." The guard's expression shifted. He wasn't wrong, and they both knew it. A public confrontation, a human demanding access to the imprisoned Empress, would raise exactly the kind of questions Draven was trying to avoid. 5 minutes, the guard said finally, "and we'll be watching." They led him to her cell, because that's what it was, despite the fine furnishings and the elegant decor. Syraeth stood at the window, her back to the door, her silhouette rigid with tension. "Leave us," Marcus said to the guards. "We have orders to..." 5 minutes. "You promised." The door closed behind him. Syraeth did not turn around. "You should not have come. I know. They will use this against me. Against us. I know that too." "Then why?" She whirled to face him, and he saw that her composure had finally shattered completely. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her face streaked with dried tears. "I am not worth it. I have brought you nothing but danger and..." "Stop." He crossed the room in 3 strides, his hands cupping her face before he could think better of it. "Stop talking like you're worthless. Stop talking like you don't deserve to be fought for." "Marcus, no. Listen to me." His voice cracked. "I spent months living in the lower districts. I had nothing. I was nothing. And then you looked at me. You actually looked at me. And you asked me what I wanted. No one had asked me that in years. No one had seen me as a person in so long that I'd forgotten what it felt like." She was trembling beneath his hands. "You gave me something I thought I'd lost forever," he continued. "You gave me a reason to matter, and if you think I'm going to let them take you without a fight, you don't know me at all. They will kill you," she whispered. "Draven will never let you live after this. Then I'll die for something worthwhile. No." Her hands came up, gripping his wrists. "No, I will not allow it. I will not watch you sacrifice yourself for me. Then give me another option. Tell me how to save you." Her eyes searched his face. He watched the calculations run behind them, the political angles, the strategic considerations, the brutal math of survival. And then, slowly, something else emerged. Something softer. Something that looked like hope. "The Council of 7, she said. "They have not yet formally declared me unfit. They're meeting tomorrow to vote. If I could address them, if I could show them that I am capable of leading, then Draven's coup fails. Yes. But I cannot reach them. I am confined here, and even if I could escape, appearing before the Council as a fugitive would only confirm their suspicions about my instability." "What if you didn't escape? What if they came to you? That would require someone of influence to demand a formal hearing. Someone who could invoke the old protocols. Commander Vaelith." Syraeth's eyes widened. "She has standing. As my mother's sworn protector, she has the right to demand a witness hearing before any vote on the succession. But Draven has surely accounted for that. He would have removed her from the palace, or she's the one who showed me how to get here." For a moment, Syraeth simply stared at him. Then, slowly, a smile spread across her face, fierce and brilliant and full of something that made Marcus's heart stutter. "You impossible human," she breathed. "You impossible, wonderful human. Is that a compliment? It is the highest compliment I know how to give." The door began to open. There, time was up. Marcus leaned in, pressing his forehead to hers, a gesture that carried no cultural weight among the Vaelith, but felt right nonetheless. I'll get word to Vaelith. Hold on until tomorrow. Can you do that? I can do anything, Syraeth said, with you beside me. The guards pulled them apart. Marcus was escorted from the secure wing and released with a warning that the next time he trespassed, he would not be treated so gently. He barely heard them. He had work to do. The Council of Seven assembled in the Grand Chamber of Judgment, their robes flowing like liquid silver as they took their positions around the ancient tribunal stones. High Minister Draven stood at the center, his triumph barely concealed beneath a mask of solemn concern. Honored members of the Council, he began, we are gathered to address a matter of grave importance to the Dominion. Our Empress, though we all wish for her well-being, has exhibited behaviors that the chamber doors exploded open. Commander Vaelith strode through them like a force of nature, her ceremonial armor gleaming, her hand resting on the hilt of a blade that had been carried by protectors of the imperial line for 3,000 years. I invoke the right of witness, she declared, her voice echoing through the chamber. As sworn protector of the blood of Vel'Kora, I demand that the Empress be permitted to speak before any judgment is rendered. Draven's composure cracked, just slightly. Commander, you have no standing here. You were removed from active duty, by your order, Minister. Not by the Council's. And the right of witness supersedes any administrative action. She turned to the assembled councilors. Do any here dispute my standing? Silence. The right of witness was ancient, sacred, woven into the very foundations of Vaelith law. To deny it would be to deny thousands of years of tradition, and the Council, whatever their individual allegiances, were conservatives to their core. Bring her before us, said the eldest counselor, a withered figure whose eyes still held the sharpness of youth. Let the Empress speak. When Syraeth entered the chamber, Marcus was already there, standing in the shadows by the great pillars, having entered through a side passage that Commander Vaelith had arranged. He watched as she walked to the center of the tribunal space, her head held high, her bearing regal despite the confinement she had endured. She looked, Marcus thought, like an empress. Members of the Council, she began, her voice steady. I have been accused of instability, of unfitness, of behaviors unbecoming of my station. She paused, letting the words hang in the air. These accusations are not new. They have followed me since the day I took the throne, since the day I refused to be the puppet that certain parties expected. Draven's face darkened. Your Majesty, with respect, these personal grievances are not. I am speaking, Minister. You will wait your turn. The rebuke cut through the chamber like a blade. Several councilors shifted uncomfortably. One or two looked almost impressed. I have been accused of relying too heavily on a human advisor, Syraeth continued. This is true. I have relied on Marcus Cole. I have sought his counsel, valued his perspective, and learned from his example. And I have done so not because I am unstable, but because I am wise enough to recognize when my own culture has failed to provide what I need. She turned to face the council directly. We Vaelith pride ourselves on strength, on hierarchy, on power. These are not bad things. But somewhere along the way, we forgot that true strength is not about domination. It is about dignity, about recognizing the worth in those we lead, not merely demanding their obedience. Her gaze swept the chamber. The humans have a word that we lack. Please. It is a small word, a courtesy, nothing more. But it carries within it a philosophy that we have lost. It says, I ask this of you not because I command it, but because I respect you enough to request it. Your compliance is not demanded. Is appreciated. She took a breath. I have ruled for 3 years without using this word. I have commanded, and demanded, and ordered. I have been strong in the way our culture understands strength. And I have been miserable, isolated, slowly dying behind walls I built to protect myself. Her voice cracked, just slightly. A human taught me that there was another way. He taught me that asking is not weakness. He taught me that vulnerability is not defeat. He taught me that the bravest thing I could do was to stop hiding and start truly living. She turned to face Draven. You have called me unfit. You have whispered that I am damaged. But I am standing here before you, speaking the truth of my heart, and I am asking, not commanding, asking, for the chance to prove you wrong. The chamber was silent. Marcus watched as Syraeth took one final breath, steadying herself for what came next. Members of the council, she said, I am asking for your trust. I am asking for your patience. I am asking for the opportunity to be the empress that our people deserve, one who leads not through fear, but through respect. She paused. Please. The word hung in the air, foreign and strange, and somehow perfectly right. The eldest counselor rose. His ancient eyes moved from Syraeth to Draven to the assembled members. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of centuries. In 3,000 years of recorded history, no empress has ever used that word before this council. No ruler has ever asked rather than commanded. He paused. It is perhaps the most remarkable thing I have witnessed in my considerable lifetime. He turned to Draven. Your motion is denied, Minister. The Empress will remain on her throne. The chamber erupted. Draven sputtered protests that were drowned out by the voices of counselors who had finally found the courage to oppose him. Commander Vaelith moved to Syraeth's side, her hand on her sword, ready to defend her Empress against any remaining threat. But Syraeth's eyes found Marcus across the chamber. Later, when the chaos had settled and Draven had been escorted away to face charges of conspiracy, Syraeth found Marcus in her garden. The luminescent flowers were in full bloom, casting soft light across his face as she approached. You came back, she said. I never left. She stopped before him, close enough to touch but not quite touching. The negotiations with Earth begin tomorrow, she said. I will need my cultural liaison. I am at your service, Your Majesty. Syraeth. She reached out, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw. You taught me a word today. One that may have saved my throne, my life, my future. I do not know how to repay such a gift. You don't have to repay it. That's not why I know. She smiled, but I want to. I want to give you something equally precious. Something that cost me as much as that word cost you to teach. What? She leaned in, her forehead touching his. My heart, she whispered. I give you my heart, Marcus Cole. Not as an empress to a subject, but as Syraeth to Marcus, as one soul to another. I give it freely, without command or obligation. I give it because I choose to. Marcus's hands found her waist, drawing her closer. I accept, he said, freely, without obligation. Because I choose to. When they kissed, the garden's flowers blazed brighter than they had in 1,000 years. And somewhere in the palace, the first whispers began of a new era, an era where an empress had learned to say please, and in doing so had found something far more valuable than power. She had found love. And humanity had proven, once again, that its greatest strength lay not in ships or weapons or numbers, but in simple words spoken from the heart. Words like please. Words like thank you. Words like I love you. The Vaelith Dominion would never be the same. And that, Marcus thought as he held his Empress in his arms, was exactly as it should be. The end.